Well, it's that time of the year again, and when I say transfer window, I mean the time of the year where we are once again linked with Ryan Giles. So, reports have once again emerged, as they seem to do every single transfer window, that Boro, for the 28th time since he left at the end of the 22-23 season, have once again begun talks in an attempt to bring Ryan Giles back to the Boro. And I mean, I've said many times, I have just gotten tired and exhausted by this endless link, and still, it has life. It was dropped earlier by Baz DJ Cooper, who is a very, very reliable source on Hull's side, that Boro will lodge a bid for Ryan Giles before the transfer window closes. Hull were reluctant to sanction Giles' exit in the summer, which you guys might remember we were massively linked with him back then. Hull's owner even come out and said back then, if Boro want him, we'll let him go, yada yada. Things then went quiet and nothing came of it. Probably down to Hull's reluctance, given that they'd not long since bought him for £4 million. But there's a growing expectation that Giles will now make a return to Boro. That was backed up by one of the most reliable sources on our end. Dom Shaw of the Northern Echo said Hull are understood to be keen to offload Giles, who has struggled for form since joining the Tigers for an initial loan deal that was then made permanent at £4 million in the summer. Boro boss Michael Carrick remains an admirer of Giles, who was believed to be desperate to re-sign for Boro in the summer, having regretted not joining the club on a permanent deal in the summer of 2023, when he of course instead signed for Luton and failed to establish himself with the Hatters. And it has been since then that the links with Giles have been endless. We of course tried in the summer of 2023, but Giles was lured by the chance to play in the Premier League, and I do not begrudge him with that chance at all, even though I think I remember saying at the time I don't think it was a move that suited him all that much. It didn't work. He come back down. Again, Boro were linked. He went to Hull on loan, and then they bought him for £4 million in the summer, which was quite a big fee, in all honesty, for a left-back at this level. But we're here again, talking about Boro wanting Ryan Giles. Now, of course, there's a lot of love for Ryan Giles on Teesside. He was immense for us in that playoff season under Carrick. He got 12 assists that season and was just whipping in balls constantly for the likes of Tuber Akpom, Cameron Archer, and was a huge part of Boro's incredible attack and one of the big players who we struggled with after we couldn't replace him. But I am incredibly sceptical about this move. I see plenty of good, but I also see plenty of bad, and reasons as to just why I don't quite get it. Get why it helps us overall on a whole. So let's chat through firstly the reasons as to why I'm sceptical, and then the reasons why I think it maybe could work. So starting off with Boro's current system. Now, I've mentioned this many times. Boro have gone through a conveyor belt of left-backs since Ryan Giles left, and not one of them have been able to establish themselves in the side with how Boro play. Obviously, as we've mentioned, Boro's left-back gets massively, massively exposed. This is usually down to the player in front cutting inside, moving central, and it's often been a target that the opposition have exploited on many occasions. They've doubled up, they've tripled up, they've targeted our fullbacks, and I've said, and I agree and I stand by it, it doesn't matter who we have in at left-back, who is going to fill that role, every single one of them is going to struggle in that system. And the problem has always been system over personnel. Every week, there's someone who says, Borges is crap, get rid of him, he's not good enough. Engel got it before him. Bangura might have got it before him, albeit Bangura's time at Boro has been stricken with injuries, unfortunately for him. We had it with Luke Thomas, we had it with Hayden Coulson. Giles himself was a left-back who has never been good defensively. I mean, we've had Hull City fans begging for Boro to buy him because of recent defensive escapades, which hasn't exactly gone down well.
Beat a ball forward. Oh, Giles doesn't cut it out. They're in danger here. Man in behind. There's the opening goal.
So we all know Ryan Giles is not a good defender. It's not his strength. It's not that he can't defend, but He's not a fantastic left back when it comes to being defensive, and that doesn't solve Boro's current problem, in my opinion. We've had tons of left backs. It's the system that's the issue, and this was really well explained by Johnny when I was on the Boro breakdown a couple of weeks ago. So here's a quick snippet of the tactical side as to why our left back issue, it can't be replaced by just personnel. It's a system problem.
So there's been games this season where everyone will say Borges is terrible, or the wing backs will get the most scrutiny in a game. So I looked at some teams that we've played against recently, teams that we've got beat against, teams that we've conceded 2 or more against. So I picked Leeds, Plymouth, Coventry and Bristol City for an example. But I had a look at every single team that we've played against this season and look to see if there was any patterns that we could look into where Middlesbrough find in difficulty. Boro are very, very weak on the wings. And this is the reason why we're seeing teams really occupy those areas, because they'll say, well, let's dominate the wingers instead, because that's where lots of support is. So what Plymouth did yesterday was they had a 2v1 on Dijksteel and a 3v1 on Neto Borges, because Riley McGree was so central in that game, where Boro had a box midfield, which we've seen them implement over the last 6 months. And with McGree being so central in that game, it allowed them to say, well, actually, here's where all the space is, here's where the glaring weakness is, and here's where Boro will really struggle. And pretty much every team that we've lost against this season has had an extra man advantage on the wings that Boro have played against.
So it's for that reason that I don't believe this will, in any way, shape or form, help Boro's biggest issue, which is defensively. We are already a fantastic attacking side. We already are one of the biggest creators in the league. But our big problem, which is preventing us from being a complete team from top to bottom, is our ability to be solid at the back and left back, full back. It's an area that is targeted massively by the opposition, and the Ryan Giles signing will not solve that unless the system is tweaked. We also have a huge number of left backs at the club already. I mean, not only is Boro's squad currently full, there is now one place free with Isaiah Jones leaving, but we're pretty much at our maximum when it comes to the number of players we can register. You'd have to say someone's going to have to go out the door before Ryan Giles comes in, and one of the left backs is probably going to have to go out the door as well. And that, for me, can only be Lucas Engel. If this move is to work with Giles, we've got to get rid of one of them. You know, we can't have 5 left backs on the books. It just doesn't make sense. It's too much from a wage point of view. Financially, I don't see why it would make sense. Stockpiling left backs has never been the answer. And you've got Bangura, who I think is currently our best left back and would be best suited to this job. Unfortunately, he's been stricken with hamstring injury in the new year last year, and then an Achilles injury this year. He's been very unlucky, and I really hope he can find a way back and make full of his Boro career. He can't go because of his injury. George McCormick is a young player. He's the future. We wouldn't be getting rid of him. I think it would be unfair to do so. So you're left with Neto Borges or Lucas Engel. We've just bought Neto Borges. Now, I don't think the club would buy a new left-back if they were pretty sure Ryan Giles was soon to follow, and I don't think we'd let Neto Borges go so soon after signing him. It just wouldn't make sense with Boro's current model. We seem to recruit smarter than that. So Lucas Engel is the only one who is left, and there were rumours that Engel might be leaving at some stages. I don't know how true they were. He's never really quite got going at Middlesbrough. Murmurs of homesickness and things just not quite working out for him. So I think if we are to get Ryan Giles in, surely there's got to be a move away for Lucas Engel. And then there's also the other tactical side of this, because I feel like the reason as to why we are buying Ryan Giles is we are simply relying on his attacking output just outweighing his defensive shortcomings. Almost like Michael Carrick is just going, you know what, none of the other left-backs have worked. I've gone round the houses and down the drains, and every single left-back we've tried hasn't worked. So we're going back to the prototype that is the only one that's worked well since he become Boro manager. And although I get that from a coaching point of view, why not go out and get an option, is reliable, that works, I think it's a little bit one-dimensional for Boro to basically get to a point down a blind alley, dead end, cul-de-sac, and realise that what we've got currently isn't working. So we have to go back to what worked 2 years ago. And I just never like going back. I just never feel like it works. I always get an uneasy feeling about going back to something that worked previously, because the expectations of what Giles can do are going to be really, really high. And if he doesn't live up to them, there's going to instantly be a bit of a negative stigma around his second spell at the club. I also feel like it's a little bit one-dimensional from Michael Carrick. I'd kind of like my coach to be inventive, innovative, creative, and try and find a way that this current system would work without having to go back and sign a player that was in the team 2 years ago. And there is that question again. We would be relying on his attacking output to just outweigh what's going backwards the other way. And so far this season, as me and Chris discussed on the podcast we did last week, you look at Boro's defensive errors leading directly to goals. The goals Boro are scoring, or you could say the goals Boro aren't scoring, simply aren't enough to outweigh the current number of defensive issues that we are having. We are conceding so many goals from individual errors on the pitch, directly conceding goals from that, the most in the Championship. So we're going to have to score a ridiculous amount of goals to counteract that balance. And that's what I think we'd be relying on with Ryan Giles, hoping that he can get forward, hoping he can get the assists, create the goals, and we just sort of turn a blind eye to what might happen at the other end, which, as I say, it ain't going to change with Ryan Giles. We're not going to get any better defensively. The issues are still going to be the same. It wouldn't surprise me if we kept conceding as many, kept having as many individual errors. We'd just be leaning on the hope that he's going to set up enough goals going the other way. And it was all right a few years ago when we had Archer and Akpom in the team. We don't even know if we're going to have Latty Laugh. We might have Conway. Azaz is a completely different profile of player. So I'm just a bit unsure. I feel like it's a bit of a desperate lunge to bring back a player in the hope that he can come back into a different team entirely and replicate what happened before, when maybe it's best for Carrick to reinvest this money elsewhere in areas where I think we need it most. Buy a better midfielder, a better central defensive midfielder, because we've got bigger issues in the centre of midfield, in my opinion. Put the money towards another Aidan Morris. Tactically tweak the position at left back to help support the fullbacks a little bit more. We've got enough left backs at the club already. I feel like there's easier ways of solving this current problem than going back and signing Ryan Giles, who is probably at his lowest right now in terms of his stock, his form. I just feel like it's a bit of a desperate ask to bring him back, and I'm a little bit uneasy about it, and I just don't think it helps us as a whole going forwards and going backwards. This does not achieve anything towards making us a more complete team and solving the bigger issues at the club and in the team right now, which aren't creatively. They aren't scoring goals. They aren't assisting goals. They're stopping them going at the other end, and I don't think Giles is going to help that in any way, shape or form. But there are positives to why Ryan Giles coming back would be good. Now, I feel like a lot of fans are probably just leading their thoughts on this with just emotion, nostalgia, and the romantic side of it. And I get that too. You know, the first part of this vid where I've discussed why it's a bad thing and why it might not work, that's my head talking. My heart, I won't lie, would love to see Ryan Giles back in a Boro shirt. He's been one of my favourite players in recent times, and he's probably the best left back we've had since George Friend, back when we got promoted almost a decade ago. So I'm not going to lie and say if Ryan Giles popped up on social media tomorrow in a Boro shirt, I wouldn't be grinning from ear to ear. I would absolutely be grinning from ear to ear. I'd be delighted to see him back in a Boro shirt. So are there any ways that this could work? Well, there are a few. There's been a bit of talk about maybe moving him further up the pitch as more of a left-sided winger. I get that argument, but I just don't feel like that fits right now. I don't think Carrick would adapt the way his team plays that much, especially when you've got Riley McGree and Bergzorg on that side. But I think he could definitely complement the pair of them. You know, it could allow Bergzorg to come inside a lot more, McGree as well, open up that lane for Giles to run into and put them crosses in the box. And I also think this could be Boro maybe looking forward to potentially losing width on the right-hand side. You know, we've lost Isaiah Jones. Ben Doak's future is up in the air. And we've heard no real links as to how Boro are going to replace one of them, maybe either of them at this point. And of course, at the moment, all of our attacking width goes down the right-hand side with Doak, with Dijksteel, with Jones. There's not much on the left. You know, Bergzorg and McGree will come inside. Borges normally inverts. Engel's the only really outwards attacking person on the left, and he doesn't really get forward and put great balls into the box. So if we lose Doak, we could shift our attack back to the left like it used to be and put a lot of focus on making Ryan Giles the forefront too creatively, whipping balls into the box and getting goals from that side. That's a worst case scenario, by the way. If we keep Ben Doak, I can't lie, the thought of Doak going down one side, Giles going down the other is quite terrifying if you're an opposition side. If you're getting balls put down in the box from both of them, then you don't just have to focus on one side. I feel like at the minute, if you shut down Boro's right-hand side, you've done most of the job. There's not much coming from the other side, whereas if you put your focus on stopping Doak on the right, you've then got to also try and think about Giles on the left. How do you combat both when one's bombing down one side, one's bombing down the other? And even if Doak isn't in the team, we could also bring Marcus Forss back in, who worked brilliantly with Giles in the playoff season, because Forss is a striker. He's like a goal-scoring right winger. And if Giles is whipping balls in from the left, as we saw many years ago, if Forss is coming in from the right, he could bag us double figures from that position as well. So there are benefits offensively. Undoubtedly, there are brilliant benefits offensively with Forss, with Doak. Even if he leaves, I still think it could work. And also, finally, I think there's benefits financially, because as I said, getting Giles here is probably at his lowest price. Maybe the summer might be when his stock's even lower. But compared to when he went to Luton, compared to when he was loaned back to Hull first time round, he was still one of the most highly sought after left backs at this level. It's only in recent years, the last 12 months, where I'd say his stock has kind of plummeted. He's gone from one of the, if not the best left back in the league to one that's not even talked about that much. So Boro will be getting him for a hell of a lot less than what we might have had to pay 6, 12, 18 months ago. So patience might pay off for Boro in terms of us getting a better deal here, getting Giles for a lot less than what we would have, and Hull are probably more likely to accept lower because he's been there for 6 months. They paid 4 million. It's not worked. The player apparently is desperate to come to Boro, so there's more incentive for Hull to sell him than ever before. So Boro might have the best possible chance and the best opportunity from a business point of view to buy him at his lowest price yet, when his stock's at his lowest, and then build him back up like we did before and sell him on for a potential profit in the future. So there are offensive benefits massively and also business ones as well. So that sort of leaves me to wrapping this up with my overall thoughts. So as I mentioned, offensively, there's no question that Ryan Giles would help this team even more so. Even though we're already offensively very good, he would make us even better and terrifying, quite honestly, going down both sides. And I think financially, it's a deal that works better for Boro than it has ever before. But my issue with Boro at the moment is defence. We need to keep goals out the back of the net. We need to sort the midfield out if Aidan Morris is not there. And I think if Boro don't have massive funds to spend, I'd rather us spend our money in other areas. You know, if Lath leaves, we've got to focus on a striker. I don't think all that money will be getting reinvested. So I just feel like there are higher priorities at the club right now when we've already got 4 left backs on the book. And I think it would be easier to tweak the current setup to suit the existing left backs rather than stockpiling and bringing in a new one. But Michael Carrick seems like he is a giant fan of Ryan Giles. He's never quite let him go. He's continually tried to bring him back. And I feel like this could be the January window when it happens. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you stand on Ryan Giles, and if you think he should come back to the Boro? Is it a signing worth making, or do you think overall it's not going to make a difference and solve Boro's biggest problems at the moment? Let me know your thoughts. It's a very divisive one, this. It's split right down the middle, so I'd be eager to hear your thoughts. But until next time, guys, if you've enjoyed the video, do hit a like on the video, subscribe for much more here on the channel. Lots of Boro content to come. My preview of the Pompey game will be coming in the next day or two. And of course, subscribe and leave me a comment with your thoughts. I always look forward to hearing them. But until next time, guys, do take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.